All right, hello and welcome to the Corner 3 show. This is episode 4. My name's Alex.
My name's Ross.
My name's Zach.
And it's been a good couple days for the Pacers. But first, before we get into our regular scheduled programming, let's talk about something that's on the top of Hoops Hype this morning, some Paul George talk. Now, I have some strong opinions on this, and to give our listeners and viewers a background, there's some talk about Paul George not wanting to sign a contract extension or the thought of him being traded. So I'll open it to the audience first before I get my 2 cents in.
I'd like to hear your take, because I talked to Alex, we were texting back and forth this morning.
Well, it just depends on your take. Do you think he actually wants to get traded, or does he not want to get traded? Does he want to sign a contract extension, or does he not want to? Personally, I think, after we had the discussion and what everybody brought up earlier in the summer was he wants to have a career, he wants to have a legacy. And, it's Mark Stein. As Alex pointed out, he got banned from the Mavericks games recently, so
not his fault, but still.
Yeah, is he Woj? Maybe not, but I don't believe the rumors. It would take a ton of stuff for Larry Bird to give up Paul George, his one superstar that he has. You'd have to make a package deal with
a Godfather deal.
Yeah. You'd have multiple first-round picks and multiple players who can come in who have potential or can play immediately.
Like what Boston did, all those different ones they got in. Yeah, I feel the only reason the Pacers would even listen to an offer, consider it, is A, Paul George wants out, which he's not said anything on those about wanting out of Indiana, and B, someone's offering them 2 number ones or a package that will include some stars, not Paul George level stars, but some stars to make them even consider doing that trade.
Yeah, and I agree with what you both said, but I think this all stems from the fact that they haven't signed an extension yet. And first of all, it doesn't make sense on a financial side because they would have a hard time signing Teague and then retaining a player like CJ Miles or Stuckey in the year.
And Paul should just wait for next year when the cap goes up.
Yeah.
Sign a new deal then, you can get more personally.
And then this summer, Nate Taylor, the Indy Star Pacers beat reporter, came out with a couple articles talking about the fact that, first of all, Larry's very vocal about the fact he wants to sign a contract extension with PG, and there were talks from Paul's side that they were looking at the same. But there's no reason for me to believe that any of that stuff we heard on Hoops Hypes was legitimate. First of all, I listened to the podcast itself, and Zach Lowe, they're just looking for something to talk about, some sort of speculation on a player. And Mark Stein, he's just trying to pull a rabbit out of his hat by bringing something up. I wouldn't look that deep into it at all. I mentioned that Paul George wore his own jersey in Ibiza this summer. It says a lot about what you think about your team. Wearing your jersey on the beach in Ibiza with your hat and wearing it all through the Olympics.
Or he's going to get noticed by chicks.
Yeah, knowing Paul George, that might be one of his points there. But honestly, I don't think we should look that far into it. He's still 2 years away from free agency. Guys, we have a superstar. Let's enjoy him right now. All hail the king, right?
The old jersey. Yeah, I think a little bit of his, we know he likes large markets. He hasn't signed. Another point, I just lost my train of thought.
But I found myself, this is how ridiculous today, and when that was brought up, was I found myself scrolling through his old tweets, looking for reaffirming tweets that would be like, I love Indianapolis so much I'd never leave here. That's how ridiculous this is. So let's just drop it. All right, Zach's going to talk about the Hawks because we just need to get away from
we're wrestling with the real thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about some real Pacers stuff.
So back to what the Pacers did. Last week, obviously, the Pacers played the Hawks, lost 96-85. That was a game where Dwight Hamill pretty much manhandled Miles Turner and the guys down low. Pacers just couldn't get in a groove. Some things I noticed, which I think we all noticed, I think I pointed out when we did our preview for that game, our bigs having trouble with their bigs. We were out-rebounded 61-45. 17-7 offensive rebounds. They outscored us 48-34 in the paint. Mm-hmm. Their bigs just gave us trouble, and we couldn't cope with that.
Yeah, and we had 6 bench points along the same lines there. It was a brutal game. Came close, 65-64 in the middle of the third there, but Dwight Howard killed Miles Turner.
Yeah, I got nothing to add. It looked like it was a sign of what we saw the week before. Like they weren't what we thought they should be.
Yeah. And we knew it was going to happen. they were struggling that week. There was no cohesion with anybody, and going in against a team who has bigs like Atlanta does, and Dwight Howard's a big dude. He can out-muscle most anybody.
Yeah. And Paul George just didn't look the same now. Just watching the game, you could tell he wasn't right. We'll talk about his injuries later, but that was a game where he just didn't look like himself. He hasn't really had one of his usual games in a while, and I think it was probably a good thing that they've been sitting him, but we'll get to that in a second.
Was that the last game he played in?
Yeah, that was the last game he played in. He only had, I think he had 17, but he was not very effective or efficient, 17 points.
No.
Then moving on, so there was a lot of talk about, back to where we were again a couple games ago, but the Pacers come back against a very weak and depleted Nets team, win 118-97. Just total domination really after that first quarter. They just took the game away from the Nets and just had their way with them.
You want to say it's just the Nets, but the way the Pacers had been playing up to that point, it still felt really good to see them totally control the game from start to finish, and hopefully this is what we see going forward, and eventually kind of did, but on the Nets.
Yeah, it was good to see Glenn Robinson. He had 20 in that game. He was able to get his feet wet with the starters. He was able to do good. Yogi was back in town. I was interested to see how many Hoosier fans would be there to see him play.
I can speak to that. I went to the game. I got there early. Went with an old Partier teammate. Got to say hi to him before and after the game. But a lot of Hoosier fans. He actually probably got the loudest ovation out of any visiting player I've heard in a long time, which is funny considering Zeller and Oladipo and Granger have been back through. But he got a big ovation. He played really well actually. He gave Brooks a lot of trouble. He turned the ball. Turned Jeff Teague over a couple times as well. I think he's going to find his niche there, but it was really cool to see him out there. It was nostalgia factor, again, going through the roof, but exactly what I wanted. The Pacers win the blowout, but Yogi plays well. I think that's what all Hoosier fans and Pacers fans wanted to see there. But again, Glenn Robinson, let's talk a little about him just before we move on, because his stock has kind of been growing ever since that Thunder game. And now with his career high in points against the Nets.
He's always had the athleticism. I think he just needed playing time with PG out. He's gotten the playing time, and that Nets game was his first real welcome. Glenn Robinson, you're finally giving us we weren't ever expecting this.
Yeah.
We were hoping for a big contribution, and just seeing 20 points to see him play that well, it's like, all right.
Yeah. He showed up. He played good defense. He's out there hustling. He gives you energy, which is what you needed coming off the bench or even starting, because that's kind of what we were lacking. And you were wondering, can he keep this up? So, it segued over into the Clippers game. He kept it up. I don't know if Ross wants to talk about that at all, how he played that game, but he's been doing real good. I've been impressed with him. It was nice to see him also like our tweet.
I was going to use that as a segue into the Clippers game. He again started in the place of PG being out, and he played very well. He had the first points on a week out, and they caught him for a dunk to start off the game, and everybody in the crowd got really pumped for that. We're thinking, oh, good, this is what we're going to get again. And we had picked him for MVP for that game. He played extremely well. Did we see what the fan voting was for the MVP? I think they also.
He's still up. I think he's up, and Miles and Al are tied right now. But the poll's still open. People, get out and vote.
So Glenn played really well. Big Al played really well. When he dove on the floor, I was at this game too. He dove on the floor. No one thought he was going to go for it. It was squeaking to the corner. Big Al dove on the floor. Big thud. Got the ball. Got the timeout. The whole bench jumped up and were pumped that he was showing that kind of hustle for his age before this kind of a game. So that was nice to see. I felt it was just a big team win. Like one stat I looked up, the Clippers have not scored under 80 points being coached by Doc Rivers, ever. This is the first time. They only scored 70 points this game. I
think the last time they scored less than 80 points, I read today, it was when Chris Paul was a sophomore at Wake Forest. It's been a minute.
Yeah, so like the defense, it felt like the defense was out. Like they played at their pace. It felt like the Roy Hibbert era Pacers. We played slower almost.
The Roy Hibbert era Pacers. That's a thing. I don't know if we want that to be a thing. Name it something else. The Vogel era. I don't know.
It was slowed down and you grinded. I get what you're saying.
That's what I'm trying to say.
I know.
Because Clippers shot 31% from the field, only 16% from the 3-point line. Pacers out rebounded them 58-48. caused 20 turnovers for the Clippers, which I think they averaged
11
12
in the
a
first,
game,
yeah.
12, and we killed them in the paint.
Yeah.
Do you know what the points in the paint was?
I didn't look
42-16. The Pacers, 42-16.
Blake Griffin was taking jump shots the whole game.
Yeah.
I thought, why is he not going down low? I don't know if he was
That
scared. or what was
played
going on.
great defense. I was really impressed
That's
with
what
that.
I want. Make Blake a jump shooter.
I mean,
You're gonna win.
that was probably his toughest matchup thus far this year against just an all-star, superstar, power forward in Blake Griffin. Early on in that first quarter, though, I got a little bit nervous because they were atrocious in the first quarter. The Clippers, I mean, they couldn't get the ball past half court without throwing it out of bounds, and the Pacers couldn't break away, even though they shot the ball 20 more times than the Clippers. So I was like, guys,
I kept waiting on the burst too.
yeah. But I think a note we have here is good Monte is past Monte. He kind of had a few moments there where he relapsed to this Hawks game, but against the Nets game, if I can go back for a second, Monte was 6 for 6, had his most efficient game as a Pacer, didn't make any bonehead decisions, which is really rare for him. I mean, he was just making the right play every time, and we saw it carry over to that Clippers game. And if he wants to stay in that starting lineup with Glenn Robinson kind of threatening to push him a little bit, if he plays like that, that's what Paul George needs when he comes back, because Paul George needs the ball. Monte can be a distributor. He doesn't have to be the guy with the ball in his hand scoring like he was 5-6 years ago with the Warriors.
Yeah, I'd put that down because the play of the game on the scoreboard was Monte drove to the rim. Everybody collapsed on him because Monte's going to shoot it.
Yeah.
But he passed first. He didn't even fake for a shot. He wrapped around Blake for an easy finish.
The
Al
owl.
Jefferson.
Yeah.
Wait, and dunk it, laid it. But still, just seeing that type of Monte, that's the kind of play. I mean, I want him to score too, but to see him looking to pass the easy pass.
He's got to pick his spots.
Right.
He's got to pick his spots.
Exactly. And he can, though. I mean, he is a veteran. I think he's 30, 31. So he's been in the league for, I think, 10 years now, or 10 more. So he knows where his spots are. I mean, he's a veteran on this team. He's the guy who speaks every time after the starting lineups when they all huddle up. I don't know what he's saying, but, hopefully he can,
Pass him the ball, man. Pass him the ball.
hopefully he can be an effective veteran because, there are always thoughts about him. Can he be a cancer? But, hopefully we're starting to see him emerge as a leader, not just a veteran scorer. I think there's a huge difference there. People kind of equate veteran with leadership. That can not be the case, especially in the NBA with some of the egos. But moving on, kind of looking back at this whole week, the big player of the week obviously is Glenn Robinson. His shot has looked so much better. A friend of the show and featured guest, Joey Burton, is his trainer along with George Niang. And he's been working with him all summer long. We heard a shout out to him in the Pacers post-game show. But he's making a real argument to be in the starting lineup, or at least to get huge minutes once Paul comes back. Because right now he played 39 and 40 minutes the past 2 games.
Yeah. I made some notes over the last 6 games since Paul George got hurt, where he was going in and out. He's averaging 11.6 points per game, 32 minutes a game. He's shooting 47% from the field goal and three-point percentage. 81% from the free throw line. He's averaged 5.6 rebounds a game. And that's just 6 games of body work. Before that, I think he was down a lot. He was only averaging maybe 2 or 3 points a game coming off the bench. So it just took. I think it took him time to get comfortable. He needed the minutes to get comfortable, to get over those. If you're coming off the bench, those are your minutes that you have. If you make a mistake, they might cut your minutes back. You might not get the chance. So
It's a totally different mentality.
exactly. Being in the starting lineup, you can get over your mental mistakes and just push forward and try to, play your game.
He just needed confidence. His shot looked very nice against the Clippers Sunday night. He had one PG style jumper, 20-footer or so. He had a corner 3. He shot with confidence. Didn't think about it. He's rising up and firing. It was really nice to see.
And I think, the more comfortable he gets in this position, keep in mind, at Michigan, he played power forward and center. He was not at all a small forward 3. In his first year in Minnesota and Atlanta, he was kind of that, stretch 4. But now he's really turning himself. He's worked his skills into a starting 3 or just a solid wing player. I think that's the best way to define him. 3-and-D is what he said he wanted to be this summer. And so could he be a starter? I mean, some people are saying him in for Thad, some people saying him in for Monte. I'm definitely on the Monte bus, but what do you guys think?
I agree, but that's going to really change the dynamic of the bench with Monte going to the bench, with Stuckey, Monte, Brooks. Those are all similar kind of players. We're going to talk about that later, I think. But
Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit later. But I think that for a team with a superstar like Paul George and with an emerging star like Miles Turner, I
a
think
player who doesn't want the ball.
a player who doesn't need the ball.
Yeah.
I mistakenly said in our first show that Glenn Robinson is a player who needs the ball. That is not at all true. He's such a great player at making plays off the ball, making the small hustle plays, the plays that don't end up on the stat sheet. There's a reason why everyone's talking about that Big Al dive is because it got the bench energized. There's a picture where Popeye Jones' eyes are about to bust out. You can't believe it.
He's right there, yeah.
I mean, those are the type of plays that get a team going that don't show up on the stat sheet.
Yeah, and he's playing great. Obviously, the last 6 games he's got his minutes. He's getting his chance. Some people I think are getting too far ahead of themselves. They're thinking, he could be
PG light.
Yeah, there's something that they could trade somebody and he could jump in and be that guy. I think he can develop into a solid starter. He can be your glue guy.
Exactly.
A guy that can, when things are going bad, you can count on him to get a defensive stop. He might even make a basket for you. He's not going to be Paul George, I don't think. But he's going to be a good player that fans are going to love, his teammates are going to love. He's going to be that guy that fans appreciate. The guy that does what needs to be done to get the win. That's what I think he can be.
If he's in the game, fans can kind of, relax a little bit, know that if there's a loose ball, he's going to at least dive for it, or he's going to make the hustle play to get a rebound. He's not going to not play hard. Right? I mean, that's not in his nature.
And he's still super young, isn't he?
22,
Yeah,
23.
early
He's
20s.
super young still. And he's signed here for another 2 years.
Mm-hmm. And, that kind of, leads into, our next topic was, obviously, Glenn's been playing better. The team's been playing better. Well, how did that happen? Well, as everybody may know, last week Paul George called a players-only meeting, talking about what they needed to do. I think it was brought up that he said they needed to know what their third and fourth option was. The team kind of didn't know where they were going. They needed to move the ball more. So it was good to get all the guys together, let them vent, see what they needed to do. And ever since that meeting, these past 2 games, they've looked good. I don't know if that had an effect on them, or maybe everybody's just getting more comfortable, but that players-only meeting seems to be helping so far.
Normally that's like worst case scenario. When there's a players only meeting, you're thinking the team's tanking, last ditch effort. But it seemed to have changed something. I mean, we still don't have our stars, but the team's playing like a team. So
Yeah. I think people may be reading a little bit too much into it just because when you hear players only meeting,
Right.
you think of something bad. We had a little bit of the Corner 3 Show insider info on the meeting itself from one of our sources, unnamed. But like Zach said, it was PG called the meeting, very brief meeting from all the information that we have, just talking about moving the ball, getting to that third and fourth option. And, I think it was just like a meeting where someone says, no, come on, guys, what are we doing? Like, our offense is so stagnant. I mean, is anyone having fun playing this way where we just break up a shot? Honestly. I mean, because especially with that second unit, sometimes it just feels like the ball just stops and then we pass it to Big Al and then we just wait for him to do something. But when he's hitting, it's great. When he's not, it's really bad. But, for now, let's say it was the meeting and hope go with it from here.
And the player who led that meeting, Paul George, we're going to talk about injuries next, still out. Next game's not till Wednesday. So Paul George, CJ Miles, Seraphin were out the last 3 games at least.
Yep.
They haven't released anything official on when they'll be back, but being the next game is Wednesday night, there's a good chance Paul George will be back, possibly Seraphin, CJ Miles unlikely.
He's out Wednesday.
Out Wednesday.
Yeah.
I misspoke. But he's working his way back. CJ Miles was at least working out. Scott Agnes just put something up about that a little bit ago. So I assume we'll see at least 2 of those 3 back in the next week.
Yeah. And this is a long road trip. There's they play on Wednesday, they don't play again until Sunday, so it's some time for guys to heal up.
Perfect time.
So it was an ankle injury up until the Nets game, and then after the Nets game, before the Nets game, it was a back injury. And, most likely what I think it was, he's been trying to play through this injury. I kind of guess that the medical staff kind of misplayed this because they had him play after that Philly game. He played through it. I think he played through it for 2 games. They sat out 1, came back, now he's out again. Playing through an injury can just mess with your back, mess with other...
Compensating.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of what happened here, but I think this gives him some time to just rest up, completely get healthy, and get moving with the team that's on a roll right now.
Which, it's a good thing. that they're giving him time to rest, because that's what you want. You want him to be able to play throughout the year. And right now, with the team playing the way it is, with him gone, this might, we'll give time for guys to get more minutes, like Glenn Robinson. It'll be good to see him come back. I'm interested in seeing how everybody looks with Seraphin back, with Miles back, coming back from their knee injuries. By the way, is there a timeline on the Seraphin injury? Or?
I think he's the closest to being back. He might play Wednesday. His is just how he's feeling that day. Yeah, I don't think it's anything serious.
Probably just sprain or something.
Something like that.
Soreness, I think, is what's listed as.
But as he said, when all these guys come back, looking at the rotation moving forward, I'm a big fan of putting Glenn in the starting lineup, and people are saying, oh, well, what happens with that really small backcourt? Well, I think you have to bench Brooks. McMillan likes a 10-man rotation. And if you've been watching Brooks, he makes some, end of the shot clock threes, but he doesn't really get our offense going. He's a scoring point guard, and at 5'11", it's, he better be scoring at a high rate to use him, because on the defensive end, he's quite the liability. I like Stuckey and Ellis. They both can handle the ball just fine. CJ's a great shooter. And then I like Seraphin coming in and bumping Lavoie out of those minutes, because I think Seraphin brings more energy than anyone but Glenn Robinson on the team. And I think it's really hard to look at those two players' body of work, Robinson and Seraphin, and say, you know what, you guys didn't do enough to deserve minutes. It's almost impossible.
I think for sure Robinson, I agree with all those points that you brought out. Second unit, you'll still have a ball handler with Stuckey and Ellis. They love to run it through Ellis anyway. And Robinson deserves starters minutes. He's proved, I think, the last couple games.
Yeah. And Aaron Brooks, he's a good player. I have a problem when Aaron Brooks and Stuckey get in at the same time.
Yeah.
They're the same player, except one can play defense. Aaron Brooks and Stuckey, they both seemed like 20 times last night in the game. They would get the ball, dribble at the last 10 seconds, and at the last second they're expecting somebody to do something. They didn't, and they throw up a three-pointer, some jump shot.
Those bad shots.
At least, I like them both, obviously, but at least with Stuckey, he's going to body a guy and get physical with him. He made Chris Paul mad like he did last night. He elbowed him in the mouth, gave him a little
Love that.
bruised lip.
Blue collar swagger.
They each bring something to the team that can help, but both of them in there at the same time, the offense gets really stagnant.
Yeah.
It's either one of those two shooting at the last second. It's just annoying to watch.
It feels like Brooks is looking for his shot whenever he comes down, instead of trying to set up the second unit. Or he's looking for a shot or dump it to Al, and normally by the time Al's ready for it, there's 15 seconds gone. There's no other option. We got to chuck up 35.
I think the more important argument here is that Glenn Robinson just will help Paul George in that lineup, because you look at our starters, Jeff Teague is going to have the ball in his hands a lot of the time because he's the point guard. He's a scoring, dynamic point guard, more so than George Hill. Monte needs the ball. I mean, if he's off the ball, he doesn't really shoot open threes. He usually shot fakes and tries to do something else. Thad Young can play off the ball, but he likes the ball in his hands. Then Miles Turner needs the ball to score. So a guy like Glenn Robinson, he could come in and have 2 points, but have a huge impact in the game. Whereas if Monte Ellis has 2 points, that means he probably had a really bad game. You know what I mean? I mean, you don't see that empty stat line and say, with Glenn Robinson, oh, he probably didn't do anything. You're like, well, he probably played really tough defense. And you can get Paul George a break, too, on one of the best offensive players on the team.
And speaking of guys that stepped up, is Al Jefferson. Someone brought up, he played himself into shape. And, I made some notes for Big Al because he's played really good. The previous 6 games before the last 2 games, he wasn't playing that great. He was only getting about 11 minutes per game. He was shooting 40% from the field, about 2 points a game. Last 2 games, Al he's getting 20 minutes a game, averaging 16 points a game with 5 rebounds and shooting 51% from the field. And it was good just to see him backing down the guys last night against the Clippers. He looked like the Al Jefferson we were used to seeing in Charlotte, where he would always kill the Pacers. Like, it seemed no matter what we do, he would get like 20 points on us every game because his offensive game is that good, and that's what we need coming off the bench.
He made DeAndre look useless out there last night, which I thought would be the reverse because DeAndre is so much more athletic than Al. But every time Al came in, he was going to show DeAndre that I'm going to kill you in the post, and he did it every time, it felt like, every time down the floor. I mean, DeAndre had a couple alley-oop put-downs over Al, but only 2, and every time DeAndre went to the line, we chanted to get the biscuits. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it was nice to see Al. I hope he can keep that up. I mean, not 16 every game, maybe, but just some solid minutes for the second unit would be really nice.
And I saw a tweet from Zach Lowe earlier this season. He was watching the Pacers game, and just said, is Big Al aged 10 years in the past few months, or does he just need to play himself into shape? He just had to play himself into shape a little bit. I think he still is. I mean, he's still a big man, and he's used to the offense, focused around him. That's how it was in Charlotte and Utah. So just give him some time here, and I think we're starting to see that signing pay off. I mean, you look at some of the Pacers signings, other than the two trades with Thad and Jeff, but other than Brooks has had some games here, but Jefferson is really paying off. Serafin's really paying off. Just some guys who Larry scooped up at the last second, who other teams didn't want, or we just could get them here because of it's the right place for them. Some great signings by Larry.
Nice. Yeah. The next point we have was the rotation. We kind of already hit on it though. Who we want to see start, who we want to see in the second unit. But one point I did want to bring up that I love that Jeff Teague does, this is just a random spot, but bringing the ball down the court, he likes to stop in front of the big guy when the big guy's trailing because he's just looking to get down and play defense. Doesn't notice little Jeff Teague. He didn't get any fouls called on the big guys last night, but I feel like he does it every game. Those little tricks, little crafty veteran moves.
Yogi used to do that in high school. It's genius.
Just
so
slow up, let
when
him
you
run
just,
into you.
when you break the press or when you get by a guy, especially on a pick and roll, and you have him on your back because he's trailing you, kind of just stop, and the big man's going to have a hard time stopping all of his momentum.
Because that's not an offensive foul.
No,
so
so
pay attention.
Boom, easy foul on the bigs. Yeah, little things like that away. I really like Jeff Teague. I mean, George Hill could do the same thing, but Teague is just more dynamic in the way he goes about playing. You can just tell that he has a switch. Not necessarily that he has to turn on and off, but at any second he could just go and get you 2 points. Whereas George Hill was kind of methodical and he had to really get himself in a mindset to score. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the trade, but there's still time to be paid off. George Hill's had a heck of a season so far, so we can't get on him.
Well, moving on, we're going to break down the weekly opponents. Obviously, we've got a 5-game road trip coming up. First is this Wednesday, Portland. They're 9-10 out of the West. Obviously, they've got some big name players, and Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. Both are averaging 22 and 28 points per game, respectively. That's a game. It's going to be a good game. Portland's fun to watch, even though the record may not show it. When you have two guards like that can light it up, it's always exciting to see that. One thing we will have to focus on is we will have to play defense. They're the fourth best scoring offense in the NBA. Defensively, they're pretty bad. They're 29th. I have a feeling this is a good game for the Pacers to get a win on the road.
Yeah. Portland's been awful this season so far. I mean, not awful, but I saw a quote from Damian Lillard just said, pretty much we suck right now. And it's really interesting because they have so much depth. I mean, you think about their team, they've got Lillard, McCollum, they've got Crabbe, they've got Turner, and they got Harkless. I mean, they've got some depth there, especially. And then the bigs, they got Leonard, they've got Plumlee. I mean, it doesn't really make sense. Who knows right now? Maybe it's some chemistry issues, but they've got an absolute stud in Lillard. So this is kind of surprising to me, but still, it's going to be a very tough game for the Pacers.
Yeah, nearly the same team as last year. So what's the difference?
That's what I was going to ask you.
Evan Turner. Evan Turner's on the team this year. When he was at the Pacers, garbage. I looked up plus minus in the NBA. The top 5 are 4 Clippers and LeBron James. Makes sense. One of the better teams, one of the best players. Bottom 5, Allen Crabbe, Joe Harris. I don't know. He's in Brooklyn. I don't know that player. Alex Len, Brandon Knight. Last place, Evan Turner is bottom on plus.
Wait, so there's
negative
three
200.
Blazers?
There are 2 Blazers.
2 Blazers.
Crabbe and Evan Turner.
Huh. Never mind. Who we got tonight?
I got the Pacers.
You do?
Yeah,
I do too.
I've got the Pacers as well. I think the vibes are rolling right now. All right, Clippers on Sunday, so they get 4 days off there, which is really unusual in an NBA schedule. So I heard Tony Donahue, and I'm calling him out. He said that you never know, a game of cards could change the whole season for the Pacers, and I'm like, that Monte Ellis is still going to jack up stupid shots, regardless if he has a good game of Texas Hold'em with his boys. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Anyways, so a little bit of a layoff there, and then most likely PG's first game back. So first of all, Clippers are going to come out with some force. I mean, they're not going to want to have another embarrassing game like they did yesterday. So what do you guys think?
I think they're going to feed Blake Griffin. He was a jump shooter last night. Didn't have a lot of touches in the post. I feel it may get ugly for the Pacers. The Clippers are not going to only score 70 again. If we had to pick, I'm picking the Clippers to get the revenge game we have here.
It's a tough one because Paul George is going to play good. Not for one, first game back. Two, he's back in his hometown.
Mm-hmm.
He always plays good out there.
He was playing
But the Clippers are going to want revenge. I mean, they played terrible. Their big three only combined for like 37 points in this last game. I mean, I took it down. CP3 minus 13, Blake Griffin minus 14, DeAndre Jordan minus 15. I mean, their plus minus, their stats were just bad. And so after the way they played tonight or last night, going home, same team, home crowd, I think this is one I think the Pacers. I don't have the Pacers winning actually. It's a tough game. It's tough to beat a team twice in the same week.
It's really tough. And I mean, looking at the matchups that the Pacers won yesterday, I thought Teague played better than Chris Paul. I thought there wasn't really, except for Jamal Crawford, a Clipper who maybe outplayed a Pacer. But adding Paul George, adds a completely different element to the game. Basically, because there's no one who can match up with him. I mean, Luke Mbamute starts for the Clippers, then they bring in Wesley Johnson, they bring in Austin Rivers. They go small when they go to the bench. But I want to say all things point to the Clippers getting a revenge game. I'm going to take the Pacers here. I think that they just match up well for some reason, which is weird. I thought that they really took Jordan out of his game. And I think Paul George is going to be really excited to get back. He's been really excited for the season, and he really hasn't gotten into a role yet. Mm-hmm. I think this little road trip gets him on a roll.
Who do you think starting that game?
I think, unfortunately, he'll go back to our traditional starting five. I think Miles will still be out, so that's the reasoning he'll give. Until CJ Miles comes back, we won't really know. Mm-hmm. But I think at least for this game, regular starting lineup, Glenn Robinson takes CJ's minutes and a little bit of Paul's still because he's coming back from injury.
Am I wrong in thinking, this might just be me, but I would love to see, obviously, it'd be Teague on Chris Paul, and then obviously Mbamute has to guard Paul George, but you'd have Glenn Robinson playing D on Redick.
Yeah.
And you'd have Young on Griffin again, then Turner on Jordan.
That's a heck of a lineup.
I like that lineup because you have someone guarding their three-point shooter. Monte Ellis he's so erratic on defense. It makes me worried all the time.
Yeah, that Redick's going to get corner threes on Monte.
And Redick, Redick's a great player as far as coming off screens. And Monte, he's 31 years old. The last thing he wants to do is chase around those screens. Glenn Robinson, just doing whatever he can to get some minutes. Again, another good point for that Glenn Robinson starting lineup move is because it allows Paul George to play defense, not always on the best player, lets him, take a few possessions, quote unquote, off, but just provides a great option for Paul on defense for the team in general.
Yeah, so after that revenge game, the Golden State Warriors get their revenge game the next night at Golden State. So I looked up a stat, I think Pat Boylan had us. First 33 days of the season, we had 12 home games, the Pacers did. Next 68 and 12 home games. So we're going to spend a lot of time on the road going forward. This is game 3 of that 5-game road trip for the Pacers. Back to Golden State. Hopefully we show up more, but everybody's going to be back. Well, most will be back. We'll see if CJ Miles is back. We'll have more firepower this game. I think it'll at least be closer. Hopefully the Pacers take it as a revenge game to prove their manhood. They don't get throttled so bad. We'll see.
Yeah. It depends because, we didn't have everybody in that last game. I think once the announcements were made who was sitting out, it was kind of like, this one's kind of over.
Yeah.
Because, their big four put up crazy numbers that game. And they didn't even play that long. Everybody was at least plus 24 or higher. Plus or minus, they all were in double digits. And then they played like every single person on the bench. I looked it up. It was just a blowout. It was an easy game. So hopefully with the Pacers getting everybody back, they can get out there and they can show everybody that they can hang with these guys. Plus, something I noticed was the Warriors, who the last couple of years have been like a stellar defensive team, are 19th in the NBA. They're having 105 points per game being allowed. I don't know what's happening this year. I don't know if it's personnel changes or what, or they're used to
protection.
Yeah, I think probably too. They're just running up and down the court. At the clip that they shoot it at, it's pretty. I mean, they can take possessions off. I mean, honestly, they have 3 of the best 3-point shooters in the league, if not the 3 best 3-point shooters in the league.
You think it's just they're allowing more points per game because there's so many possessions going back and forth?
Yeah, I mean, they scored 149 the other night against the Lakers.
Yeah.
It's like, jeez.
So it's not technically a loss of them playing bad defense. It's just them.
I think a little
They're
bit.
pace
They
game.
lost the rim protector and
Bogut.
and those big guys, but now they're going to play faster, so it's like a trade off.
Now it doesn't matter in the playoffs. It's going to matter. It's going to matter when they're playing a tough game 5.
When they
in
can't-
Portland, or
Threes aren't falling for some reason.
yeah, threes aren't falling and they can't get a stop. That's when it's going to
They are
matter.
on an 11-game winning streak right now.
Yeah.
It
They
feels
were.
like they're starting to hit their stride. So hopefully the Pacers show up. What are our picks for that game?
Golden State.
Golden State.
I'm not gonna even last time we talked about Golden State. I tried to make some sort of weird case for matchups.
Yeah.
They're just they're just so stacked. It's stupid.
So I think we're gonna go 1-2 in the next 3 games.
2-1.
I like your enthusiasm, but I think it's going to go.
I'm going with enthusiasm every time. I'm riding the Pacers, baby. Okay, before we move on to some other NBA talk, let's talk about what may be the greatest promotion of any NBA team of all time. Missing it for the biscuit. The opposing team misses 5 free throws. Anyone in the metro area can go to the Hardee's the next day. And hopefully Hardee's will sponsor this section of our podcast and YouTube show. Thank you, Hardee's.
Have any of you gotten the biscuit yet?
No, I'm not.
I forgot it this morning.
I was gonna go this morning and I was running late.
People seem really enthusiastic, but I wonder if it's just because it's free food and not because it's actually any good. I don't know.
Yeah.
Are you guys Hardee's fans?
I mean, I'll eat it if it's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's fast food.
Free food.
Obviously.
If it's free,
But if you
it's,
give me one.
If it's free, it's me. But yeah, so free sausage biscuit
Fans
for
were
your
going
local
nuts
Hardee's.
last night. Yeah, everyone's chanting, "Foul DeAndre, we need one more miss." It was great. We were getting all pumped.
I heard on TV. I love it. That's a great promotion, along with the Pacers 90, which I'm convinced will be changed by the end of the season.
Have we
because
scored under 90 more than once?
like
Just
one or two
time.
times.
Yeah.
That's it. By the way, you get a half off your Papa John's.
I've used that one many times. Thank you, Papa John.
Thank you also, Papa John's, for potentially sponsoring this portion of the podcast and YouTube show.
You're like, not now.
All right.
General NBA talk. Obviously, we want to talk about other teams besides the Pacers. Cleveland.
Or pro basketball.
Pro basketball here. Cleveland was obviously first in the East, 13-2 record. They are head and shoulders above everybody else. Toronto's 10-6, Chicago's 10-6, but they're just not on the level of Cleveland, the defending champs. One thing that people aren't talking about with this Cleveland playing so good this year is Kevin Love is quietly having an awesome year. He's averaging, what is it here? We got 45%. He's shooting 45%, 43% from three-point range. He's averaging over 10 rebounds a game and over 22 points a game. He's putting up Minnesota numbers, which is something people haven't seen in a while. It's good to see Kevin Love out there showing everybody that, he's not the third wheel. He can take over and win some games for Cleveland as well.
It's not a good thing for the Pacers, but it's a good thing for the Cavs.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Cavs look solid. I think they're just determined again to go out and meet Golden State in the finals. They kind of struggled yesterday. I mean, maybe it was because they went to the game, the OSU Michigan game on Saturday, but they had a kind of a tough game yesterday against Philly. But they're stacked. I'll be interesting to see if they make any move at all regarding their backup point guard position. I know they have the rookie Felder, I think is his name.
Short person representing.
That short person representing. But it's Cleveland. Cleveland, Golden State. I mean, how do you even break down those teams? I mean, they're just two juggernauts right now.
It's
Highest
still-
payrolls in the NBA.
Yeah, it's still early, but the Cavs have a nearly 4-game lead on everybody else. It's like a race. The 2 through 8 seed are decided by 1 game, so they're all jammed up. Cavs are well and away above everybody else.
Big difference though between the East and the West. Though I think the 8th or 9th team in the West is what
LA.
they're. Yeah, and how many games behind are they? They're 6.5 and 7. Whereas in the East, the Pacers are 7th and only 2 games out of the 2nd place.
Mm-hmm.
So in the East, it's kind of what we thought it would be like. A lot of teams competing. Bulls, I think they're still equalizing here. I don't think they're going to stay at that pace. Some teams that are kind of fallen off. Obviously, the Wizards and the Heat. I still thought the Heat would be competitive. Just they've got some talent, but the Heat and the Wizards really fallen off this year.
I have no answer for either of those teams. I thought the Heat would be better too. If Justice Winslow gets a jumper, I thought second year he'd be a much improved player. He gets more time. Dragic's still there. Whiteside's a beast. I don't understand what's going on. Wizards.
I think that Beal and Wall just hate each other.
I think so too.
Everything points to that they just hate each other.
They're both all-star type players.
You think it's alpha dog syndrome, where one of them,
Wall or Beal's got the higher contract, and Wall knows
A
it.
lot.
Yeah.
where one of them's like, well, I should be the superstar of this team, not you. And
Well, I think Wall doesn't get a lot of the praise he deserves because, I mean, he's a top.
He's amazing.
I would take
Yeah.
John Wall over Bradley Beal.
Oh, every time.
Exactly.
Every time. But I think Beal, for some reason, gets this bio with him that he's always like he's going to be that great all-star player. Just wait. But every year, he either gets hurt or just doesn't play the way he's expected to. But then you look in the West. Some teams that, Minnesota's still not able to climb that wall, a team that everyone kind of put in the playoffs. I mean, Zach Lowe, Simmons, Stein, all put them in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. They're sitting there at 5-11, where the Lakers are still playing well. Luke Walton's got the young Showtime Lakers playing well. The Jazz, I think the Jazz got Hayward back, starting to make their way up. They're good. I mean, the Jazz are good. They got Joe Johnson, Boris Diaw, some veterans with some young guys. I really like this Jazz team, especially in a first-round matchup versus the Spurs or Warriors. That could be a tough matchup.
Yeah, the team surprisingly, the Grizzlies and the Thunder. I feel like they're the two primed to drop off that list, if anybody. Yeah. I'm surprised the Grizzlies are fourth right now. I mean,
but every year, I mean, look at last year. They had like no team. They filled in 25 players played for the Grizzlies last year, and yet they were still fourth or fifth in the West. I mean, Conley and Gasol just
good, but
they just hold them up.
Past that.
Yeah, how long can they carry it? I know, like, Williams had, 20 points.
Oh, Troy.
Yeah, he's playing well for him, too.
But, I mean, he's a rookie. He's not going to step up and do that every year.
I think people are finally going to appreciate how good Mike Conley is.
We're
finally realizing that this guy is just that dang good.
Is he going to make the All-Star team this year?
I think he is in his first year, finally. I mean, he's playing out of his mind every night. I mean, 28-12, we got 27-15.
Curry, Thompson, maybe.
Point guards.
Chris Paul.
Point guards is going to be Curry, Westbrook, and
Harden.
Harden will just be a guard.
Yeah.
Westbrook, he said Westbrook. It'll be tough. He's like right on that edge.
He better.
I mean, he should.
As everyone says, if he was in the East, he'd be like a 5-time All-Star.
Exactly.
It'll be tough because you still got Lillard on there too.
Lillard, I forgot.
Didn't he get snubbed last year and he was ticked off about that?
Lillard did, right?
Yeah, he did make it, right? And then Harden did. And Harden shouldn't have made it. But this year, Harden and Lillard both deserve to be there.
For sure. But yeah, it looks like there's really only 4 teams we have to worry about. Our top tier.
In the East?
1 in the East, that's it. 3 in the West, Golden State, San Antonio, and the Clippers. And the Clippers seem to hit a little rough patch. I mean, we beat them.
You're just thankful
Denver lost
to
in
be
the
in the East.
Very thankful to be the East.
It was like a week ago right now. It was like doom and gloom. Oh, we're terrible. We can't win.
2 wins and we're
This
second.
is the NBA, though. We have to remember, it's still November.
Yeah.
It's November 28th.
Like Ross said, 2 wins and we're right back and we're like in fourth.
I mean, that bad Brooklyn loss and that bad Philly loss, and we're number 2 in the East.
Yeah,
No one's talking about Paul George extension then. Guarantee you.
that's true.
People just see sense spot. Oh, Paul George must not be happy. Piss off, Mark. I'm sorry. I just can't stand that. When people, like I said in that group
story
text,
for story's sake.
yes, it's the opening day buzz is gone. Everything like it's not like it's not like Boston's number 1 in the East. Like Golden State and Cleveland are number 1.
I need to get those fanboys talking. What can I stir up today?
Cuban, just give him his passes back so he can get back to something.
Mark Cuban. All right, so last week I don't remember the projections or our picks for last week in the Pick'em contest, but regardless, I am losing. Zach and Alex, you guys each at 7 and 4. I'm at 5 and 6.
Is this for just Pacers?
Pacers and the teams? Yeah, put them all together,
Okay.
lumping them. So I'm not doing well. So whatever the thing is at the end, I may have to pay up.
For those of you listening on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play,
send me something
Zach and I just did a fist bump.
Fist bump.
Yeah.
Made it explode all over Ross's face.
All right, well, we'll let it
sounds
out.
weird. But anyway, if you have any ideas on what to make me do at the end of the month, keep it tame. The loser has to do something embarrassing. But this week, the TNT game is December 1st. We have 2 games, doubleheader. Clippers, Cavs is the first one. It's in Cleveland. What are your guys' picks for the Pick'em contest?
You want to go first out?
I got Cavs. Clippers on a little bit of a struggle bus right now, but Cleveland Cavaliers are good at basketball. That's a lot to say about that.
I'm gonna pick the Clippers.
Mm.
Gotta go a little bit different, but I gotta win this competition. But
Should have picked the Cavs then.
Clippers are third in the West, and the West is obviously tougher than the East. And if this could be the Clippers' last chance to make a run this year, so I'm going with the Clippers on this one.
I was hoping you guys would be on the same side so that I could pick one and make some ground up. I'm going to go Cavs on this one too. Watching the Clippers play, I don't think that's the team we'll see all the time, but they have some holes they got to fix up here.
Mm-hmm.
And the next game then we have Rockets at the Warriors. A little bit of Harden, Westbrook, or Harden Curry MVP rematch in a way. I don't know. What do you think on that game?
I feel like this is a classic, really amped up game, and Warriors just blow them out. I'm sorry. I think the Warriors are just. I mean, first of all, the Rockets don't match up well at all against the Warriors. No one on that team is going to guard Kevin Durant or Draymond Green. I'm sorry. I got the Warriors by probably 25 plus.
I'm with the Warriors as well. Harden will get his numbers. He'll get his triple double, keep his MVP hopes alive, but
He's a beast.
they're not
They're
going to
gonna
lose. They just don't. They don't have the players to match up.
Yeah.
They won't, but I have to pick the Rockets because I'm losing poorly. But I'll pick the Rockets now and see if they can show something.
Just live another week. Just pick the Warriors.
I'm down 2 games. I got to do something.
You could be down even more.
You can be down even more by the end of this.
Probably what's going to happen. I will probably finish this in last place. It's the first month doing this. I'll figure it out. I'm getting my groove. But then we wanted to talk a little bit of college hoops.
College hoops.
Yes, IU is the first one. They're letting me talk about this because IPFW. Anyone actually heard of IPFW? It's where I went to college. It's Purdue IU joint campus on Fort Wayne, in Fort Wayne.
The Mastodons.
The Mastodons. They played IU basketball and beat them in overtime. Shocking? Not so shocking. I feel
Not
like,
so shocking. What are you talking?
Well, let me explain myself.
Whoa,
Thanks, Ross.
Rob's evidently a diehard Mastodon fan.
Let me see the shirt under that.
Man, we're to win it.
I love that. Oh, yeah.
We can make the tournament this year.
I'm not saying IPFW is actually any good. I mean, they may win the Summit League, but what is that actually saying? I'm saying small Indiana schools, when they get to play in their non-conference schedule, big school like that before,
He's crying right now.
they get a little pumped for that game. I remember when Michigan State came to IPFW, everyone got pumped. IPFW still got smashed, but
Michigan State came to IPFW. Oh no, because Fife.
that was a couple years ago or so. So IPFW had nothing to lose. They played their best game ever. I don't think they will keep that up. They're definitely going to lose whoever they're playing next, have a little down. IU probably was looking past. IU was looking past IPFW. I don't know what to
True.
He's like, what the one game?
I just think, that's my take.
I mean, I was impressed. I think IU has these letdown games every year, but not against IPFW, obviously. I think a really big concern for IU has to be their lack of wings behind OG. I mean, he was sick, that's why he didn't play in the second half at all. But they have really good guard depth. But I forgot his name, but number 55 for IPFW just ate up anyone who tried to guard him. I mean, they started Zach McRoberts last night, IU did, because they just don't really have any wing presence right now. So I think IU, they're super young. Huge win over Kansas to start the season. What do you think about UNC coming to town on Wednesday?
I think they'll right the ship.
You think so?
They're still ranked 13th. They're still a good team if OG is off of his sickness and he's
You didn't see
back.
him play last night, right? I don't think he played at all. I know he warmed up, but I don't know if he played.
I don't know. I think they can bring what they brought to Kansas. That kind of a loss is going to stick in your head to IPFW. You don't want that to happen again. I know UNC is a totally different opponent than IPFW, but you want to at least show up. I think IU will right the ship.
Zach, who do you got? IU, UNC. A game that IU has won, I think 2 or 3 years ago they won in the ACC Big Ten Challenge.
Where's it at again?
IU.
Honestly, I mean, I like IU. I like IU basketball.
Huge fan. Huge fan.
Huge.
He knows the team.
I know all well. I'm picking North Carolina on this one.
Oh.
I feel North Carolina's got a bunch of bigs, man.
They're good. They got some
Always
dead deal.
step
Should we throw this in the pick 'em contest? Give me a
No,
chance.
let's do it.
Give me a chance.
I got IU.
There is that.
Do you want me to sacrifice this?
If this is going legit, then I'll take IU as well.
For everyone watching YouTube, you can see Ross's IU crib, his striped pants.
Candy stripes.
His candy stripes. I'm a huge IU fan.
So, I mean, you had the candy stripes. Were you happy that IUPFW won, or?
I actually did not watch the game.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry, I went to bed because I thought it would be an automatic win for IU.
Which is understandable. I watched it on my iPad. It was Watch ESPN.
I was very surprised. I mean, my mom actually texted me, who never watches sports, and says, "Are you wearing your IPFW
Ross!
shirt today?"
Ross!
And I said, "Why would I wear my IPFW shirt today?" She goes, "They won." And I immediately got on ESPN. Oh my gosh.
It's pretty crazy. Good for them though.
Good for them. Yeah.
Good for them.
Probably the biggest win ever in
Yeah.
that program. They've only been Division I for, I think, less than 10 years. They're
Yeah.
relatively new program there.
Yeah. Good for
We
them.
don't, that's the most
Maybe-
we'll ever talk about IPFW basketball.
We'll talk more IU though, coming soon.
Yeah.
Butler, huge win over the weekend in the Continental Tire Las Vegas Invitational. These preseason tournaments, it used to be just the Maui Invitational and then maybe like I think the Champions Classic or
For
something.
the Atlantis tournament.
Yeah, and now it's the Continental Tire Las Vegas Invitational.
Wow.
Anyways, is that right? They're ranked 18? I didn't check.
Yeah.
They're ranked
Yeah,
18th. Wow.
Got released,
So,
yeah.
huge win against Arizona, 69-65. Arizona has been teetering a little bit, but I think we talked about it in our first show, first episode of the show, that Butler has some pieces. If they put them together in the right way, they could be a really good team. And they did it without Keelan Martin really going off. He only had 16 in that game against Arizona. But you saw guys step up. You saw Avery Woodson, the transfer from Memphis, who led the nation in three-point percentage last year. You saw Sean McDermott, a guy who redshirted last year, come up and make big plays. Balanced scoring. Really interesting team going forward. They're kind of a juggernaut as far as they can just throw guys at you if one guy's not playing well. It's not like the Pacers where, if one of our stars isn't playing well, we kind of throw you Aaron Brooks and he doesn't do what he's supposed to do. But they're a really interesting team, and they have the best recruiting class, or not the best recruiting class in the country, but one of the best recruiting classes that they've ever had coming in next year as well. They're starting to get on a roll now. Really a Big East team.
It's always good when Butler's good.
Always good when Butler's good.
Touche.
That's all I got.
Shout out to Jimmy LaFacus, by the way, friend of the pod.
Jimmy.
So we want to talk corner three?
Yeah.
The corner three for this
The
week?
corner 3 for this week. I think Zach's got. Well,
It's a free one. Anyway, the corner 3 for this week. We'll just free ball here. The corner 3 for this week.
none of us are free balling it.
Not-
I can-
not at
I can-
all.
Are you sure on that?
That's disgusting.
No one's free balling it.
Anyway, we wanted to go talk about 3 Indiana Pacers, each person, who we thought was the most underrated player. Basically from what 2000.
2000.
Yeah. My personal.
Let's just all do number 3 first.
Number
and then
3,
build
okay.
up. Go around the table.
I'll let Ross go first.
Oh, Roscoe.
I want to go last. I want to
No,
get your guys' thing.
All right, this is just your number 3.
This is number 3.
Well, number 3.
Okay, I'll give my number 3. Al Harrington. You guys remember Al Harrington?
I do remember.
Little Al. I don't remember what we actually called him. He actually started for a while, kind of a out of high school player. He was the same like Bender, Jonathan Bender, mold type player.
Shout
Good
out
for
Jonathan Bender.
Could have been something. Bad knees. That's too bad. Al Harrington's my number 3, underrated player. I think Pacers fans knew who he was, obviously, and like, and then he went on to Denver.
He played everywhere.
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
also
somewhere.
had Al Harrington
Number two.
number 3.
Oh, wow.
I liked the guy. I
yeah.
wish he could have stayed around longer. He averaged 13 points for his career. What he played in Indiana for 6 seasons, I think, 5 or 6 seasons.
For a while.
Wow.
He had a good career in Denver, too, after.
Denver. I feel like he went to a couple other places.
I think
too.
so.
He bounced around.
I remember
Towards the end of his career, he bounced around a lot, but that's
Solid
who I
pick,
think
though.
as well.
What's your 3?
Who's your 3?
All right, mine's. Well, I looked
So
up
you're
from
making
Ross's
math for some
notebook. I picked 2 because they're kind of the same person.
Oh,
Picked Dante Jones and Rasul Butler, both older players who came in and provided a spark in there. Let me just give you some Dante Jones stats. He had his best season in Indianapolis in 2010, the last full Jim O'Brien season, thank God.
Oh gosh.
10 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, but just a tough player. I mean, a hard-nosed guy. We needed that. We didn't need thug hard-nosed player. We just need nice, tough player coming after the brawl. And he kind of led that charge in the next year. Averaged only 6 points, but played tough defense against that short-lived series against the Bulls, the playoffs. And then Rasul Butler, you saw it again after he left the Pacers with the Spurs, but just came in, knocked down a couple shots. But the locker room guy is a term that gets overused a lot. How valuable is it? He actually was a guy. I actually got to go into the Pacers locker room once after a game. I got to talk to David West, but Russell Butler, I mean, he really is that guy. I mean, he just taking young players aside, talking to them. I mean, I actually saw that in person. You know, you kind of just, you know, how valuable could that actually be? Russell Butler, Dante Jones, pretty valuable to a team that needed that. They needed that role.
So you're saying the older, veteran type leader guy. I didn't know I could do two in one pick. That's fine.
I didn't. Well, I only had Dante Jones. I saw you had Russell Butler, and I was like,
It pops in his head.
that's a good one. That's a good one. Number 2.
My number 2, guy was around a long time. My guy was Jeff Foster. Number 2.
Jeff Foster.
He never did anything great.
Nope. Jeff Foster.
You know, he wasn't the best player, but he was a glue guy, like we talked about earlier. He was able to do the things you needed to get done. Even if he was your second or third big man coming off the bench, if you needed him in the playoffs just to come out there and get physical with somebody so they don't get easy buckets on you, he'd get out there and get rough with guys. You know, he would do what you needed to get done to win the game. That's why Jeff Foster.
I love Jeff Foster. It may sound ridiculous, but if we were to retire one more jersey,
Jeff Foster?
I would retire. He means so
Not
much.
Jermaine O'Neal?
He was my number 1 on my list. He means so
Why
much.
did you just say that?
He only
Well,
averaged
you
4
said Jeff Foster.
points.
I had to say, well, Jeff Foster. If you need an offensive rebound, Jeff Foster's going to get it for
If
you.
you need a crazy white guy flailing through the lane, Jeff Foster.
Texas Tech. I think he went to school there, small school, not basketball, known for the basketball players that come out of there. Jeff Foster. I had something else. Oh, in the playoffs, remember when he scored over 20 points and he himself was shocked because his job was just to get the ball for Reggie, J.O., the other guys. He embodied the Pacers through the early 2000s.
What a guy, Jeff Foster.
Jeff Foster.
All right, Ross, number 2.
Well, I kind of revealed my number 1 already. Sorry about that. Number 2. Well, let's do that. Number 2.
Yeah.
I'll do Jeff Foster my number 2. I'll switch one.
I'll have a real serious rant.
Yeah. There you go. I'll take
That's
Foster
his number 2.
All right, okay. I have Brad Miller.
Ooh, that's fantastic.
All-star career here in Indianapolis. Averaged 15 and 8 in his first year, and then 13 and 8 again. And that was his all-star year in Indiana. Just a solid big who really helped space the floor with Jermaine O'Neal. I remember the first Patriots game I ever went to, he was on the ticket stub with the entryway into Baker's Life in the background, but I just loved the way he played. I loved playing him on NBA Live 2003. I just thought he was a really good player just to space the floor. I mean, did everything right, and unfortunately he was only here for 2 years, but hometown guy?
Kendallville, Indiana.
Kendallville, Indiana.
Really?
Did not know
I
that.
didn't know that either.
I don't even know that Kendallville is a real place. I think you just made that up. Very
Sorry,
possible.
Jared Smart, if you actually listen to this.
Have you noticed the number of towns, and this is probably a terrible thing to say given that we have an Indiana fan base, but like if you just come up with a word and then say like Ville or town,
Greenville.
yeah, or like there's probably
We're not
like
very creative with our names.
like LaCroixville. That's probably just south of Peru.
I only
Indiana.
had one beef with Brad Miller. We had Reggie Miller, we had Brad Miller, and they put on the jerseys for those
B.
years.
Miller,
B. Miller, R.
R.
Miller.
Miller?
I hated that. Just do Miller on the jerseys. The numbers are different. You don't need to put the first name on the
You
end.
hated Brad Miller for that?
The one thing.
That's your mistake, Jake
Because
White.
when he came, they.
The team manager should be
For those who are listening on iTunes, Ross is in fact white, so just throwing that out there.
We have picked quite a few white guys on this
Although
list.
he does, I picked Russell Butler and Dante
No,
Jones.
Foster.
Alright, we're back on.
Oh my God.
So we'll just start there, right? Anyway. So the part 2.
Wait, when did you hear it? Just now?
Just now. So it was probably like.
When you were saying something about at the Jazz.
Oh, but he plays point guard for the Jazz.
So you can't even do it.
Wait, ready.
Alright.
But he plays point guard for the Jazz.
But he's being used differently because he doesn't have Frank Vogel coaching him.
He doesn't go stand in the corner.
Yes. It's not the Frank Vogel
That's still-
offense where he doesn't
All
have.
right.
Frank Vogel had a bland offense. Everybody knows that. Like,
It's still bland, but
It's still bland, but he. I don't know what it is in Utah. He's playing better. I'm not giving him my most underrated player just because he's playing good in Utah. I just always felt like he was good. He just was not the right fit for that system. I said at the beginning of this, I was a fine and I wanted the trade. I always said we needed a new point guard. But if you look at the guy, he should have been something more than he was with the Pacers.
I agree with you, Zach. He was going to be my number 3, but I put Allen there instead. For years, I wanted the Pacers to move George to the 2, get a real point guard, because I felt like he played better without the ball. he plays better when he was more aggressive. Yeah, he was underutilized. I know you have a different take, but
Let's see what Alex has to say.
and
I think George Hill is a very talented player. I think he's very skilled. I think that obviously, as he's shown in Utah, is that he can be a very, very, very good and effective NBA player. I think in Indiana, he, might have been, part of Frank Vogel's offense, but there are flashes of his game that we now see in Utah where he plays every night. And those flashes were inconsistent, and I think that falls on the player. I think that there are plenty of times where George Hill could have solidified himself as, the player that Zach Lowe loves. I mean, every stats guy loves George Hill. Every stats guy, says that Utah got the better end of this trade. But Indiana fans, there's a reason Indiana fans wanted George Hill to go. It's because, there were so many times during the course of a game where he could have taken it over or made, a big play here, a big play there where he didn't. That maybe, the stats guy sees on, the box score and says, well, why don't you guys like George Hill? That's why, I respect that. I respect it. I'm just not a huge George Hill Pacers fan. I'm a huge George Hill every other team fan.
okay.
So who's your number one?
Yeah,
I have Danny Granger.
excellent.
I did think about Danny.
Danny Granger, think about that.
He's my number one slow. Let me hear you.
0607.
No, he was number one.
06, rookie year, 7.5 points. Next year, 14 points. Next year, 20 points. Next year, 26 points, all-star year. Next year, 24 points. Next year, 20 points. Next year, 19. And then the next year, that's when the injury started. But just think about that. A team that had no future. I mean, the Malice at the Palace destroyed the Pacers for forever. And then you've got 14, 20, 26, 24, 20 points, and then 19 points.
Think who his coach was, too.
I mean, Jim O'Brien is
my
awful.
goodness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so you've got just so many years of great production. And look at the minutes, too. You don't even hear about this anymore. 36 minutes, 36 minutes, 37 minutes, 35. Who plays those types of minutes anymore, right? I mean, this guy led the Pacers out of what was basketball hell and brought them back to, the Frank Vogel era and handed it off to Paul George, who never had to deal with that sort of stuff, I mean, Paul George right now is living on the high with the team and the caliber of players that he's been able to play with. And I think we owe a lot to Danny Granger for keeping hope alive during those tough years.
Keeping the team at Indy. He was drafted 17th. That's not the player you're expecting to be your superstar. He had to play with Mike Dunleavy, Troy Murphy,
Diener.
Those were the other stars around him at the time. I mean, he didn't have a lot of help. He was all we had for those rough years.
Yeah.
Bad coaching. I feel like Pacers fans, we look back and think that was a rough time, but we need to give a little more love to Danny Granger. He was really important for us.
He was a great player.
I had thought about him, but he was like our best player for all those years. I thought, well, we appreciate it
Because that's all we had.
But I think
Yeah.
we kind of look back now and we're kind of greedy because we almost don't even think about those years. We think about the Hicks Knicks, then we think about the Reggie Artest era,
2003, and then you skip
and then we skip
up
up.
2010.
We don't really realize that for those years he kept Pacers basketball alive. I mean, I forgot what year it was, 2010, where there was thought about the Pacers hadn't re-signed their contract with the city. I mean, if Danny Granger doesn't have an all-star year, if he doesn't win Most Improved Player of the Year award, if he doesn't, put up these numbers and make the team relevant at all, I don't want to say that we're somewhere else, but I mean, it made the decision a lot easier.
Yeah. He won a gold medal in the FIBA World Championship. It's not. I mean,
He's a great player.
yeah.
Great player. He played 82 games, 80 games, 67, 62, 79, 62,
Till the knee
and then
took
just
him out.
fell off.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think we owe a lot to him, and if we would have had him healthy during that 12-13 season, or even that 13-14 season before we traded him, who knows?
Yeah.
Could be done another
Anybody
deal.
have any honorable mentions that I didn't bring up?
I said Danny Granger to be my honorable mention.
I don't know. I mean, Travis Diener up there. Just
The
kidding.
Deans.
The Dean Meister. Played with Dwayne Wade. Didn't know that.
I had a couple guys like Austin Crozier. I don't know.
His broadcasting abilities
sorry, Austin.
lower him.
Terrible.
No.
Some bench guys I really appreciate over the years. Travis Best, Fred Hoiberg was there for 1 year. Guys like Anthony Johnson. That was the rough
You know what I
year.
found out today doing the research for this?
Yeah.
I did not know this. I mean, because I lived in Ohio at the time. Tim Hardaway was on the Pacers.
Yeah, 1 year.
One
I did
year.
not
We had
know
1
that.
year of old man Tim Hardaway.
Like old man Tim.
Like can barely tie his shoes.
I got excited because it's Tim Hardaway, but it was the last year of his career. It was not pretty.
We almost had the full Warriors squad there with Chris Mullin and Tim Hardaway, and then just something happened.
10 years too late. Yeah.
10 years
My only other mention was I always liked Barbosa when he was here. He could not play defense at all, but you knew he was gonna the Brazilian blower. He was gonna get points and be fun to watch.
Having some nostalgia time here, I remember there was a photo of the during the Eastern Conference Finals where Danny Granger was giving Leandro Barbosa a little bit of a haircut before a game, like in the bathroom, and I'm like, that's like the small market team right there. Like before, like right now, the Patriots have some of like the highest facilities in the NBA. I mean, especially with the new practice facility going up. But I mean, like you know, the starting small forward, you know, lining
The
up,
star.
up the point guard.
Clean you up, bro.
Yeah, let me clean it up. I was just like, that's just hilarious. I mean, that's like, Patriots are always not, they're not going to be, you know, the team that has all the stuff or, you know, it's Indianapolis, great city, gets like cold. But, I mean, we just love our basketball. Right? I think that does it. Ross, where can everyone follow us on social media? And which has been hopping lately. Keep on voting on our polls. We'll do a weekly, a game, every game, new MVP, vote.
Yeah, good call. Evan brought up. We'll do that each game. So you can follow us
Shout
on
out to
Twitter.
Evan Smith.
You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on Instagram. The Corner 3 Show. We're all there. And we all have our own individual Twitter handles.
We do,
You'll see
we
us
do.
out there.
And also remember to subscribe to us on YouTube, watch these videos, refer it to your friends, and we'll keep doing our best to put a good product out there for you.
Your
And
review.
iTunes and Google Play and SoundCloud. Watch us and thanks for joining.
See ya.
Peace.